Let's do it.
Sorry. That's what,
If you do not want to work, do not come to the University of Georgia. But if you want to win,
come to the University of Georgia.
Troup, Smooch, and the Dawgs Show. Another new episode is coming up tonight.
It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.
You're listening to the one and only Dawgs Show. Your hosts, Troup Brinson and Smooch Moncrief.
Just two dudes talking Georgia football.
Welcome, dog fans, to the one and only Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch and special guest Coach Hayes.
Coach Hayes, 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 Coach Hayes.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Good to hear that riff again, that opening intro riff. It's good to be with you guys tonight.
Yeah, and Smooch, if right before the intro where he said, if you want to win, come to Georgia. If you want to get drafted, come to Georgia as well.
There you go, Troup Brinson.
Yes, sir.
We're going to talk about the draft. Georgia with 13 more draftees and 4 more undrafted free agent signings, so 17 in all, but 13. That brings the total from the past 5 years to 55.
Oh my God!
Players, and anybody, even the remedial math students, can figure out what the average on that one is. 11 per year. Kirby Smart,
come on,
Georgia,
yes,
putting
sir.
people into the NFL. Love it,
dude. It's amazing. It is. We were talking about this in the pre-show with Coach Hayes. It's the consistency. It's one thing to have peaks and valleys and all that and have these moments, but it is the absolute consistency of Kirby Smart led teams that is just it's unparalleled at this point in the game, Coach.
It is, and to kind of piggyback off what you just said, that's the one thing I've always felt like from a coach's perspective, and as a head coach of your program, being the CEO and general manager of what you're trying to do, you recruit yourself. Because I remember when Alabama was really getting on a roll where we were seeing them, it seemed like every year, every other year. And we were, fitting in the model. We were trying to, start to bow our back a little bit just as Kirby began his tenure. We talked about how important it was to see those kids getting drafted to the league, because that's the ultimate priority, the pinnacle of what these kids want and, what they're looking to do ever since they picked up a football for the first time, if that was their passion and desire. So when you move forward and you look at these kids that are getting drafted and you look at the unprecedented numbers that Coach Smart has done over his tenure of time, that consistency is definitely something that is a staple, but also too, now we are beginning to see it at that consistent level across the board. And that is what is helping, I think, recruit kids to the University of Georgia as much as them wanting to play for the brand, for obviously a program that's going to be competing for national championships year in and year out. And that was a pinnacle that we needed to reach. It wasn't just about bringing in quality players and playing quality football. It was about getting kids into the league, getting them to reach their goals. And that's what he's been doing consistently, especially over the last 5 years. Man, unbelievable numbers, Troup.
Yeah, and I feel like the last 2 or 3 years have been strange because, if Georgia, if they wouldn't have had all this NIL, it would have set up a legendary few years, because Georgia would have been able to get whoever they wanted. And they do pretty much when you get top 3 classes every year. But it's kind of even the playing field a bit. But if with some of the bigger schools, with all things being equal, and some of this money kind of starts to settle, and numbers kind of get similar, whether that's something that we do as college football, and we kind of regulate a lot of this and put some caps on it. I guess the success and the consistency of that and your coaching staff is going to come back around to make a bigger impact, and is pulling these kids to Georgia, because for the last couple of years, you've seen it. You could have a great relationship with a high school athlete, 4 or 5 years put into it, and somebody at the very last end can swoop in and is offer an ungodly amount of money in that last week, and it's hard to turn it down. That may be about to change soon, it seems like, as what we're reading. And so Georgia putting these guys in the draft every year in and year out, is going to be huge.
100%. That's the litmus test, right? What are you doing?
Yeah.
It used to be, and one of the things Kirby's been knocked for, he doesn't produce, quote, numbers. You don't have 10 sack guys. You don't have guys with 1,000 yards receiving or guys with 1,000 yards rushing right now. But what you do have is guys that not only are going to the NFL, but going to the NFL and thriving. And now you see with other teams like Detroit, we'll get to this in a minute, with like the Detroit Lions finally jumping on the bandwagon with your Steelers and your Eagles and saying, look, Georgia makes NFL players ready to excel, coach.
Yes. I sit there and think to myself, with Coach Smart doing what he's doing with the consistency of the staff, if you look at just the previous news, I know a lot of people are kind of miffed at this, maybe 50-50, but Dante Williams, the defensive back coach they got from USC, he just got moved up to, an associate head coach position. And guys, a lot of times with titles, I know that helps bring in guys to solidify keeping coaches on staff, but you don't realize the solidarity of coaches staying on staff helps to make those kids a little bit more at ease when they're making their decisions in the recruitment process. I wouldn't say that it's going to be I wouldn't say that it's going to be always the case because, we could have easily lost Tate Ratledge when Sam Pittman went to Arkansas, but thank goodness that we had, Coach Matt Luke come in and actually keep that kid on board because as we saw what the potential of what he became. So, I look at it from the standpoint of just looking at the Falcons, for example, finally taking a Georgia player. You look at what the Philadelphia Eagles have done. They've shown it on the field and exemplified it. Yeah. It's very hard not to want to be an Eagles fan right now. Then you see what Detroit did as well. I was really surprised because with Trevor Etienne and, with Dominic Lovett, being the only 2 transfer guys that actually went into of those 13 that were, I was really surprised. Trust to me and Stackhouse were probably the 2 that I was kind of surprised it didn't go later on, maybe in the 6th, 7th round. But, still though, just the solidarity across the board is such a great recruiting tool for Coach Smart and staff. And, he's doing the things to keep the pieces in place to me that's going to, as time goes on, I don't really see a lot of change that's going to take place, and hopefully they're adapting and year in and year out and just getting better with their recruiting process. But, man, having that consistency, like you said, Troup, at 11 on an average per year, I mean, how is that not a recruiting tool on its own?
And the thing that pleases me the most, and I don't think this is new, but it seems to be more vocal now, is you hear some of these NFL coaches come out and they just tell you, I've been to a lot of Georgia practices. I watch these players. They prepare different. And we've been telling our fans that Georgia prepares different. The pace and the intensity that Georgia practices with is not a common thing. And I thought for a while that Georgia's depth allowed them to do that. But now with the NIL, that you don't have quite as much depth. So you got to be careful with that. But I just like to hear NFL coaches recognize what the Georgia program does and how they prepare players to go into the NFL. And so when you get some of these guys who are, maybe who are borderline draftable, or you got to make a decision based on one player or another, and it's kind of close. Georgia is getting the benefit of the doubt. You got to go that. You got to go that route. Why wouldn't you when Georgia prepares players like that? If nothing else, you're going to get a great role model or somebody who is a leader in the locker room and who
a locker room plus.
Yeah, exactly. You need that. You need those things. And those guys, Georgia has that. Georgia's had that. You look at a Dan Jackson who, when he got steamrolled in that Alabama game when Keely Ringo scored a pick
That's
6.
my favorite Dan Jackson play is him getting steamrolled on the Keely Ringo pick 6.
We were like, okay, well, that's Dan Jackson. He just got bullied a little bit. It didn't matter at that point. But I don't think we had the respect for what he was doing in Georgia's program until 2 years later. And now he's the guy. He's one of those guys that you want to write a story about. He's just a guy who does not make any excuses, won't take no's for an answer. And the coaches keep him on the field because they can count on him. And he produces. He got better and better each year. And that was what he, that's just the mark of a great program. And so I like to hear coaches talk about that. I like to see those players drafted. And it is a great advertisement. NFL draft is always a great advertisement for the Georgia program.
It's a recruiting advertisement for Georgia. I mean, there's not many. A lot of teams, they sit at home and they're counting their there's 1, there's 2. Georgia sets their over under at 10 and says, it'll be a good night if we go past 10. And that's the thing every year. And it makes when you watch the NFL now, and every other name called is a Georgia Bulldog, especially when you get to the playoffs. You got Georgia Bulldogs against Georgia Bulldogs. And to be fair, you've got Alabama Crimson Tide against Alabama Crimson Tide. It's just a testament to what that style, when you take the two most elite coaches to be in the most elite conference in the SEC and what they've been able to do, the quality of the product that they've been able to put on the field.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen, I know we obviously are going to be more concentrated towards our Bulldogs on the Eagles team, but I saw something the other day. There's just about as many Alabama players on the Philadelphia Eagles than there are the Georgia. And why
I've got a great graphic for that. It's right here.
Those two would definitely fit that criteria. I mean, why would you not want to take some of the best defenses that you saw, the best offenses that you saw, and not want to take from that team? And, to me, to solidify that and bring all those kids together, I mean, is just, like I said, it's unprecedented. I'm also a big fan of Dan Campbell right now, the head coach for the Detroit Lions. I was really a big fan of him prior to him even getting Tate and Dominic and Dan. But, man, Dan Jackson going to play for Dan Campbell and that group now, oh, my God, sign me up. It's definitely made me look at the Motor City a little bit differently, as well as the Philadelphia Eagles up there too.
Yeah, and Smooch mentioned this graphic. If you are just listening to this podcast on audio version, we want to steer you over to our YouTube page as well. You can pull us up and see our beautiful faces. We'll have some graphics and videos for you to check out. And you really want to see that. That's where everything's taking place right now. We're really proud of our YouTube page. Let's take a look at the draft again. Let's take a look at, I think a lot of folks predicted that it would be Jalen Carter who would go first. And
Jalen Walker.
Jalen Carter, yeah. Jalen Walker would
He should have gone first, too. He should
have. As far as the Georgia Bulldogs getting drafted, Michael Williams was drafted 11th overall by San Francisco.
Yep.
In the 2025 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Michael Williams.
And then that gave the Falcons the opportunity to do what we've been begging them to do for years. Make the easy choice. The other coaches are telling you across the NFL the easy choices. It just got to the point where it was laughable. And I think that they did really want a defensive end, an edge type position. They were looking at James Pierce there, but when Walker was available, they couldn't pass him up. And that was finally the right decision, was the easy decision.
Troup, you want to hear something beautiful? The team that passed on Jalen Carter when he was there, the team that passed on Jordan Davis when he was there, and the team that drafted a linebacker with Nakobe Dean on the board, that same team. Troup, here you go.
With the 15th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Atlanta Falcons select Jalen Walker, defensive end, Georgia.
You hear the relief in those Falcons fans?
Yes. Without a doubt.
Absolutely, Coach.
So, yeah, and Georgia did have 3 players, of course. You know it by now, drafted in that first round. Malachi Starks, who everybody's in love with him already. And you can see that those, I guess it's the Baltimore Ravens. I've seen interviews come out with him.
Talk about a fit. Good gracious.
Enamored with him. They like this guy. And obviously they targeted him. They wanted him. But he wasn't the only team that targeted him. I heard that Philadelphia was looking at him as well. Why wouldn't they? But they love their pick with Malachi Starks. So we're excited to see that. And you have to let me know, Smooch, if you have any video or anything you want to throw in. Just
I've got a great Malachi video right here. Here we go.
Malachi.
How you doing?
Hey, this is Eric DeCosta with the Ravens. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Hey, how would you feel about coming to Baltimore and playing for our defense?
I've been sitting here waiting too long, Coach. I'm ready.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Well, I've heard you're one of the best kids to come out of Georgia in a long time. And
without a doubt.
And that means a lot to me, and it means a lot to our owner Steve Bisciotti and Coach Harbaugh. You're a great player on tape, and we're going to add you. We're going to take you. Our defensive coaches are ecstatic. They're so happy.
Yes, sir. Me and you both. I appreciate the opportunity. I really do.
Troup, his mom, Tisha, I think it's Tisha. Is it Tisha?
Tisha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tisha. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she follows the show and sent us a very sweet message when her son got drafted. But
he killed it. I mean, he's got great tape, right? Yeah. He did things for Georgia And in college, sometimes you have to do things that maybe not be best for you on the next level, but you have to be flexible and be able to cover different positions. And Georgia had to use him in the last couple of years. Maybe it didn't always
especially 2024. He played all over. I mean, he did a lot of things that weren't indicative of his position. Right?
Exactly right. But when you hear him, that he killed the interview in the best way possible. Not in Shedeur style, but in Malachi Stark style. And they let him break down.
They told me bust out my AP.
Sorry.
They let him break down plays, and he just blew it out the water. They love to hear him talk football, and so he impressed people with his knowledge, and to go with that tape. So we're so happy for Malachi. That started the run on offensive line, though, Smooch.
Yeah.
As Georgia then went in the second and third round, Tate Ratledge to Detroit.
Pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Detroit Lions select Tate Ratledge.
I included this video rather than the ESPN broadcast because Mr. Tate Ratledge, King Mullet, as tough as he is, Coach, he gets that big man bottom lip quiver there. When he looks at his daddy right after he's been drafted, that bottom lip starts going. It's absolutely beautiful, Coach.
Yes, his mom teaches in the same system that I do in Floyd County, and I know his dad Dean too. Tate's just one of those that it's beautiful. It's kind of like what I see with Ladd. You watch a guy grow up, play ball. Obviously Coach Atha at Darlington. I'm good friends with him too, and just to be able to know how proud you are of watching a homegrown product that's just grown up and just blossomed, been successful, and to see all that come back to just that surreal moment when he's being drafted, when you're back to that pinnacle spot in your life where it's almost like, when you think about your timeline and you think about those special niches that are carved in your timeline, that's definitely one of them, I'm sure, right there.
That broken ankle against Clemson in the first championship season and then standing where he was on that day.
Without a doubt. It's just great. I mean, it's just to see a full turnaround with that and to be able to see, a grown kid still be a kid and realize how important and surreal that was in that moment. That's the reason why, man, I break down, all of these guys, even non-Georgia kids, everything that was on Twitter, man, it was like me pouring into some of them old novels and stuff, man. I'm sitting there quiver lip and, I'm losing my man card on watching some of these guys get those phone calls from the general manager. So it's a special time for special guys, and guys, I'm telling you, that percentage is so very rare, low, who's getting drafted to the NFL. From all of those kids that wanted to play from the time they entered high school, the amount of percentages, how they drop and tear off to the top, and is a very small number. And to get your name called on draft day is just something special.
Come on.
And that's one of the things that I explain to people who aren't big time sports fans, or sometimes, some women in our lives don't really get it. Why do you like this so much? Why does this mean anything to you? Why do you, whether it's a baseball game, football game, they don't understand why it means so much to us. It's because we have followed these kids since they were really kids. We have followed them and tracked them and seen everything they've gone through and fought through. And it's just, that's a part of connecting to a team and to players. And so that's the big part that the people who don't really understand it. Yeah. That's why we enjoy it so much, and we revel in days like when Georgia gets these guys drafted and they move on to their next step in life.
Yeah.
Dylan Fairchild also got drafted in the third round to Cincinnati.
Hello, Dylan. This is Zach Taylor in Cincinnati.
Hey, how are you doing?
We're gonna make you Bengal right now, third round.
Oh my gosh, let's go.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Awesome, man. We're excited about you. Can't wait to get you here. I know you spent some time with.
And see these two players right here. Next is, of course, Jared Wilson. Before we play anything on him, those guys were just 1 year starters for Georgia.
Yeah,
they waited their time, prepared, and got in there. Had a good season, and they were NFL ready. And they both went in the third round as linemen. So Dylan Fairchild to the Bengals, then Jared Wilson to the Patriots.
Coach, let me play Jared. So I'll get him in
the 2025 NFL Draft. The six-time Super Bowl champion, New England Patriots select Jared Wilson, center, Georgia.
I almost included the ESPN. They went on a love fest. This is the best center in the draft, the fastest offensive lineman at the combine, that type of thing. Coach, were you surprised that Jared Wilson went after Dylan Fairchild 14 picks later, right? Or was it just a thing of just need and both players were quality players?
You said it right you hit the nail right on the head. It's a position of need.
Okay.
The center position is something where you've got guys that are already in the barn. And you're looking at your depth piece, because obviously with Jared, you're wanting to see him come in and possibly do like a David Andrews did from Georgia, also playing for the Patriots as well. And I really do think Jared was always spoken very highly of from Coach Smart. We knew how athletic he was at center, and I knew watching film on him that he would definitely be the next center once Cedric Van Pran left. And, as you know, Troup, I love the center concept. I want to know who's next and next and next. But, still seeing him drafted where he was at was pretty spot on, to tell you the truth. It's position of need, what that actual team needed at that point in time. And I think Jared's going to be a great asset for them.
Yep. And then next in the 4th round, Georgia sent a couple skill players to the NFL. As Arian Smith, the first skill player for Georgia, was drafted by the Jets. Jets. There you go. He got drafted number 110 overall, Arian Smith. And
so does he have second or first round talent without the drops? I mean, what if you take the drops out, where does he go? I mean, that's how impressive his athletic profile has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to be, right? Anyway, I'm sorry. But yeah, I was surprised with Arian Smith going in the 4th round, but hugely excited for him.
He's going to be that kid I think that everybody's going to be surprised by once he gets in the league. I think really he got sort of drowned by the drops this year.
Yeah.
But I think that comes back to a lot of the things that was just in the chemistry of the program this year and what Carson Beck had created this year in that arena. Now, that doesn't still make, if you look, though, it does not matter to me if you go back to the Stetson Bennett years. I don't know, a lot of people don't realize this. I broke a lot of film down in the 2021 year. He caught everything that came to him that year.
Yes.
In 2022, I mean, you know what he did? I still think about the Ohio State. I mean, how many kids right there would have probably figured out a way to drop that football? He was wide open.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, there was a lot of contested catches where he made those catches. It has a lot to do with the chemistry you have with your quarterback, and I don't think he was just on the same page with Carson Beck all year long. That created sort of that disconnect that you saw, and him going to the Jets and seeing it shows you had a great interview process. Obviously, going to the combine helped create that extension and saw what he could do physically. They knew what the physical parameters were. They're going to increase his route running, his tree running, and understanding how to make his breaks. He's getting better and getting lower and breaks. Even John Gruden had a lot of good things to say about him as well.
He did. He really helped him in the draft process.
He sure did, and that's something I think that when I hear it from those kind of guys that have seen plenty of potential in the NFL, that makes me feel good knowing that I think he's going to have a good, solid career with the Jets or wherever he ends up going, maybe after, if he does go to free agency with that.
Yeah, very happy for him. And even though he kind of caught it from fans over his career, especially the last year, because of some of the drops, there was a reason that they kept pushing him out there. There's a reason that he got so many opportunities.
Yes.
Because he practices the right way.
Yeah.
And he's a good leader. He does things the right way, and you need those guys on your team. You want to reward him, and he's got the traits, to be a really, really dynamic wide receiver. So good luck to him on the next level. Trevor Etienne was 4 picks later to the Carolina Panthers.
Hey, come on. I mean, hey, anybody that wins us an SEC championship is a DGD. I don't care where he started. You win us SEC title, DGD. Good for Trevor. I'm not sure how healthy of an environment there is in Carolina right now, but it will certainly be bolstered by his presence there.
Yes, he is. I kind of find it to go back and be able to give a little hard time to the Florida Gators.
Everyone from Florida is stupid. Everyone from Florida is dumb.
Because, he left to basically take into the Georgia position at running back and left that running back at Florida that they said was better than him anyway. And that running back at Florida didn't even get drafted. So, there's something obviously good that he brings to the table. I know he probably didn't get to show everything. It would be nice that he could have maybe even stayed one more year, but getting the opportunity to be drafted and get your name called, I mean, he's going to add to that Carolina running back room, and hopefully we'll see good things from him.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Georgia, the run on defensive players from Georgia started in the 5th round. Number 1 overall in the 5th round was TID, Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. He went to the Vikings.
Yep.
And then a player that we all followed over his career. We all followed Smile Munden.
Yeah.
And because he flashed so much early in his career. And then the injuries took hold. He was not quite. He still had really good games and was a difference maker when he was healthy. But I was glad to see him get drafted. If he'd have been healthy his last couple of years, he would have went much, much higher because he is his measurables are really nice. Very, very athletic. Smile Munden.
Perfect fit in Philly, though.
The Eagles. The Eagles.
The thing with Smile is just staying injury free. He's got a foot issue that I know that's been prolonging him, and I hope that they can get in there and do what they've got to do physically, maybe orthopedically, to take care of that foot for him to, for his longevity of his career, because I think he definitely adds to an already great Philadelphia Eagle team.
It comes down to whether the foot is like a Todd Gurley knee or is it something that can be rehabbed. Todd Gurley had something that just would not get better.
It's degenerative, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's kind of where his career probably rests. It's a feast or famine type of career probably for him.
Without a doubt.
3 more picks on the board or to come next in the 6th round. Warren Brinson got his name called. Green Bay Packers.
Good for him.
Picked him up.
Coming back for his last year and then getting it done.
Got it done. And then the 2 players picked in the 7th round by the same team, Detroit, who, again, we're Detroit fans. Dan Jackson, the guy we mentioned earlier, of course. And a couple years ago, nobody would have saw him getting drafted. But he had to get really good combine. Or was it the combine or was it the team workout?
Well, Dan Jackson didn't go to the combine. It was his pro day was great.
That's the pro day. That's what I meant. Yeah, the pro day, his numbers were very good. It was the pro day.
Yeah.
And he just showed some of that athleticism they needed to see. And he was a performer. And the coaches love him. They're going to talk him up. They're going to tell during the interviews or during some of the meetings, they're going to tell the NFL brass, this is a guy that you could use. This is a guy who's going to make your team and make you better.
I told my wife when Dan Jackson didn't get invited to the combine, you couldn't have done anything more to reveal this guy's character to the team that will draft him, because he will go drafted, by snubbing him for the combine. And then at his pro day, he's out there performing. I believe, Coach, he would have been in the upper half of safeties in terms of athletic measurables at the combine had he been permitted to go. And just a guy that has done nothing but everything he's ever been asked. The first time we saw him was on special teams. He's come in. He was never on scholarship. Is that correct, Coach?
No, he was not.
You heard the story about him, though. Did you know that he just kind of came and said, hey, I want to play football, Coach? They didn't target him, didn't know anything about him. No. And then worked his way from there to be drafted into the NFL.
And I'm going to say something about that too. Who really fell in love with him first? Someone who had a very big backstory, the same way he came to Georgia and the way he got into the coaching reign, Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning saw a lot of him, because I don't know if you think about it, Dan Jackson got a lot of playing time under Dan Lanning, and I think Dan Lanning saw a lot of those intangibles, things that a lot of people didn't see, and that's the reason why we got a chance to know who he was. But I'm going to tell you this: I would take Dan Jackson into a bar fight with me as a head coach.
There's the clip.
Dan Campbell sees Dan Jackson probably very similar to his mentality. I want those kids who are blue collar, lunch pail. They will. You tell me what tree to go bite, and I'll bite the bark off of it for you, Coach. That kind of kid. And because of his measurables, because, he probably doesn't fit all of the size and those things that you want to see at the safety position, he makes up with that by good speed, ability to change direction. Obviously, he will knock your absolute hat off your head if he could. So his hitting ability obviously is something, and that's something that's hard to teach. You can't teach someone that just wants to go, knock the paint off your helmet. So, those things run with it. And I think, at the pro day, him having the fast speed for the 40, all the different shuttle drills and things like that, and just seeing the mentality, and obviously I'm sure they interviewed him as well. He just seems to be the perfect fit to be a Detroit Lion. I couldn't be more excited for a kid that you see grow and develop, like we talked about earlier, that goes through everything, pays his dues, stays out there, continues year in year work out to get better. And now you see him on a draft board and being selected by the Detroit Lions.
Yep. Love it. Gotta love it. Great story. The last draft pick in the 7th round from Georgia was Dominic Lovett. So he put in his time, and he may serve a role in the NFL. Yet to be seen, but congratulations to all our draftees.
Dominic
13 of them.
Yeah, and Dominic can get open and he can catch the ball.
Yeah.
He came in. He's one of there's only 2 transfers on this list. Is that correct? Or
yes.
is there? Yeah. There's 2 transfers on this list. Dominic's one of them. He's done nothing. For a wide receiver to transfer and then play the role Dominic did, you have to give props to him, because that's not a wide receiver thing. He did it with his head down, without making noise. He did exactly what he was asked of. He just came in and did his job. And there are almost 0 wide receivers in this world that function with that mentality these days.
And Trevor Etienne was the other one.
So
there you go.
Were there, and we talked about this in the pre-show, what surprises? Any surprises coming from these Georgia draftees, or where they were drafted, or how that was handled?
Well, you spoke of the run in the draft on offensive linemen. I was surprised how high they went. I was surprised that Tate went in round 2, and then, that Dylan was ahead of Jared, and then that they both went in round 3. To me, that was a bit of a shocker, Coach.
Yeah, Jared going in the 3rd. I thought Jared might end up slipping into the 2nd round because of his center position. I think he was probably the best center of the draftees that were coming in there. But it was position of need, as you and I talked about earlier, so that's why he slipped to the 3rd. I was really surprised the 2 that I was thinking to actually tie our record, because I thought Dan Jackson would be the one to make it 15, was Nazir Stackhouse and Xavier Truss not being. And I figured they would be somewhere in the late 6th, possible 7th round to be, that some kind of stability for the defensive line and the offensive line. As much as I have cussed Truss for the last 3 years,
you're probably the reason, Coach.
I am probably the reason. I probably saw too much film if I broke down how much he was asked at times. But, when it comes down to the fact, he's got the intangibles. He's got all the specs as a good tackle, good reach, good size. Somebody that could be, coached up. And, he did go in as an unsigned, free agent with the Vikings, I believe it was. Or did he end up going?
No, Truss is with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos. There was a couple of them that went to the Vikings. I think it was
Chambliss and Urasek.
Urasek, yeah. So, it comes down to it. I just think Truss is going to be that one that ends up maybe making a team, even though like I said, not been his biggest fan, but really surprised about Nazir and Xavier Truss not being.
The Denver Broncos were prepared to draft Xavier. They ran out of picks. I mean, that's at least what they told him. So, I think they were very happy when he fell, and that's the reason he signed very quickly with Denver. So they were on the phone with him immediately.
That's awesome. And, so other than that, I think everything kind of flowed very well. My biggest surprise was the Falcons drafted a Bulldog finally. And hopefully they will see the fruit of their labor with that as the years progress forward.
Just drafting in the SEC, I'll even take that. But, the Bulldog just puts it over the top.
So before I ask another question about that line, I will say that the most draft picks this year, Ohio State did have 14, Georgia with 13, Texas with 12, Oregon with 10, Ole Miss with 8, Alabama 7, Florida 7, LSU 7, Michigan 7, and Miami 7. So really, Ohio State and Georgia head and shoulders above everybody else.
Alabama and Miami 7. Wow.
Isn't that insane? And kudos to Coach Smart in probably one of his hardest fought coaching years that he's had in his 10 years there. And winning an SEC championship, even with all of that frustration that we saw this year on the field. Supposedly this is a down year, and we got 13 guys drafted. Are you kidding me?
We talked about that last week.
It's a factory, man. It's a factory.
But that's the question, the overriding question I hear from a lot of fans, maybe fans that don't live it like we do every day. Maybe they do, but a lot of the fans are saying, you got all these draft picks and you got 3 offensive linemen that just went in the early rounds of the draft. Why did the offense struggle to block? Because blocking was a huge issue for Beck's success, our wide receivers having time, our running backs being a big factor in the game. It just really wasn't. We needed the running backs to be a huge factor this year. Our line, despite getting drafted, those 3 guys getting drafted early, just didn't perform well this year.
I thought about this a number of ways. I'm not one to usually jump on the blame the leader thing, go blame Carson or whatever. And even Tate himself said that there were some guys that missed assignments, that weren't playing at their best. There was a lack of focus, and I get all that, and I'm with it. I'm sure that was there. Guys that believed in their stars rather than believing in their work ethic. I totally get that. But Troup, then I went right back and I thought, how many bad offensive lines did Dan Marino play behind? How many bad offensive lines did Tom Brady play behind? Very, very few. Did they have the best talent? No. They had a quarterback they were petrified of letting anyone touch them. And in my opinion, I think when you don't have an alpha leader at the alpha leader position, and you're talking about 5 guys working in a give and take concept to protect one person, I think that having a leader there that they would lay down in traffic for is actually very important. And so I think it's a combination of things, but I'd be very interested to see how an offensive line rebounds under someone that everybody can't wait to fight for, like a gunner, as opposed to what was there last year. Coach, am I off base here?
No, indirectly, what you're saying, I think, fits probably a little bit of the criteria of our frustrational part to it. What you'll notice is that, I don't know if you realize or not, we played from behind a lot this year. So when you are all of a sudden down a touchdown, 10 points, 2 touchdowns, it's really, you still want to try to establish the run game, but unfortunately there's inconsistencies with that. And you got to think about it too. Dylan Fairchild and Tate Ratledge both had years of experience prior to the 2024 season. Jared was coming in his first year, but he'd gotten a lot of quality reps back when Cedric Van Pran Granger was injured. So those 3 on the interior, that little triangle, I always call it the triangle, even though I know they're a straight line. I always talk about a blocking concept. But anyhow, the 2-guard center combo, those guys have to work together a lot, from pass pro to run concepts, because the center's brother-in-lawing with the right guard or to the left guard, depending on which way you're going for zone or whatever it may be. When all of a sudden you're having to play catch up and you're having to all of a sudden change your statistics to 75% of the time you're throwing the football.
Oh,
all of a sudden that comes down to the play behind your tackles and what we saw from the edge play. We saw very little give up. I think maybe I watched all year long Tate Ratledge give up maybe 1 or 2 pressures, maybe 1 sack. Dylan Fairchild gave up a couple. Jared had a tendency sometimes to lose his guy that caused pressures, but I didn't see the inconsistency that we saw from the tackle play where we're getting edge and bend and getting to the quarterback. So, that's the inconsistencies. We have a tendency to be in the moment of the game and not realize that, hey, we really want to be a 50-50 team, a 55-45 team run to pass. You want to establish your run game. You want to insert your dominance to throw the football. But unfortunately, when all of a sudden you're down 2 series and you've yet to score and you're down 14-0, all of a sudden sometimes OCs will abandon what is the base thing that we want to do. Hey, we'll run the zone just to try to loosen us up a little bit to set up the next thing. You've got to come back to the basics. It's like when, for example, running the offensive I formation, I was a big fan of the veer, which is basically a concept of the triple option. But you can't just dabble in the veer. The veer is something that you've got to be able to run in your sleep, just like Denzel says from Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
It's like Novocaine. Just give it some time and it'll kick in. My thing is I want to make sure that if I'm going to go out there, that I've got those 4 or 5 plays that they can run in their sleep where they take it personal, like the person across from them is talking about their mama. So we start moving meat in the other direction. And that all of a sudden, when you insert that kind of dominance in, now we become bully ball. And then that, to me, gets back and reflects into the passing game a little bit better. We had to see too much passing going on due to the fact that we were playing behind so much. And when we did run the football, it was very sporadic. And there was missed assignments. You talked about it. When you got 5 guys trying to work in unison with one another and one guy screws up, it could cost the whole play. You could have 4 guys blocking it majestically and one guy mess it up and it's a bum run. And that's what sucks about the offensive line and why it's so important that you have 5 guys working in unison, communicating to the nth degree. And unfortunately, we didn't have that. And that comes back to the chemistry, which is what you're speaking on with your quarterback back there, who had a little more negative influence than what we were led to believe as the year went on. I tried to defend him, but after
we all
a period
did.
of time, we realized now that he wasn't worth. I had to say he's not worth. We wasn't able to defend him anymore because all of those fallacies and things that we were beginning to think were falling on deaf ear really became truth as time went on. So, yeah, I see it just us playing behind so much that we had to change our gameplay. And when we did still try to establish any kind of run parameter, it was being stopped. But to me, the precedent was set for those 3. They had really done a good enough job to establish their PFF grades were really good because consistently, for the most part, the pass pro was solid. And when they did run the football, they were, if you watch film on all 3 of them, they did a pretty good job. Dylan Fairchild was probably the least in the 3, being able to try to move people out of gaps. But he was strong in his upper body. He stayed on people. He continued and blocked through the whistle. So that was something that people saw in him to be a good thing. And those 3 together made a good trifecta.
Yeah, Saban said that Fairchild didn't get a lot of push, but he stuck to people like glue.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
You can have that too, especially if you want to take a defender the way he wants to go, and especially with zone concepts. It's just that's the reason why you didn't see Fairchild pull a lot when we ran gap scheme stuff.
Interesting.
I don't think you noticed that.
He's not blasting people up.
Yeah,
right.
And honestly, to me, he fits the profile of the perfect guard to pull for trap and for counter and for power because he seems to be that guard that I would love with a wrestling background, sort of a pedigree, being a state champion wrestler. I'd love to see his ass pulling and flathead an end, but you didn't see it very much, and that may be the reason why. I don't know. If I was at practice and saw what Stacy Searle saw every day, I might have a better opinion of that, but I'll stick to what I just said right now.
Someday, Coach, we'll be there.
I agree with you, Coach, and the tackles really let us down this year. You saw all year long. You know what you're going to get from Truss. He looks good some plays, but half the time he's doing something that somebody else has to pick up for or letting somebody get around the edge. I mean, it was issues with him, and then also Ernest Green had a very subpar year.
Yes,
and so those guys were up and down. It seems like
I think he played a lot. I think Ernest Green played a lot more injured than anybody.
He did, and then you saw against Notre Dame, Monroe Freeling decided to have the worst game of his career, and people took into the tight ends didn't always block either. You saw Jurasic have so many issues in the first half of the season blocking anybody. He got better.
You're just getting me grumpy.
I know. So lots of things went into that, and it takes some cohesiveness. More than anything. So I think, as we keep saying, the squeaky wheel will get the grease.
Get the oil.
Either learn from it or make it a trend. Is it a downward trend or is it something that scares us to death? So we get in there and do the work and make it better.
If we get another subpar year of offensive line play, I think at that point we'll know that maybe it is a coaching issue, and maybe I think that'll be all the evidence that Coach Smart needs as well. He'll be right there with us.
I agree with you on that. I was going to say that I actually have talked about that because Stacy Searles, like I said, is kind of personal to me. He grew up in the same town I did. I know him very well, know his family very well. I know obviously he loves the game, and it's just a matter of getting across to these guys. And you're right. I told him, I said the same thing. If we continue to see the same trend, because now he's got his guys, the guys that he has recruited, the Daniel Calhoun group is his group. So, and he's got them on first and second team. So, you're right, Troup. I think if we don't see anything that changes this year, it stays status quo to subpar again, all of a sudden you've got to start questioning what Coach Searles is doing with them.
So before we get into the transfer portal talk, which I'm just going to recap that, and because the transfer portal has closed, and we got those complete numbers for Georgia. Is there any other thing we want to talk about with the NFL draft? Any more surprises? I know that everybody has had their opinion on the Shedeur Sanders saga. You guys got any thoughts on that?
I need your underbody
everybody's attention real quick.
I think we need a whole nother show for that, brother. I really would love to sit there and talk about it, but I think they found out very quickly. Coach Prime doesn't need to be their agent. Secondly, they don't need to. They realize the NFL don't care about all the things you've got and how your entitlement of things, and they don't run the show. They want. They're in the business to win. It is an employment that they're looking at, and these guys ain't going to show up and just put up with that kind of stuff. And they got shown up. There's not some kind of collusion against him. He showed his ass in the interviews. It's shown. It's evidenced by that. He came in with this entitlement, and can we just say that he's just not as good as he thinks he is?
Thank you, Coach. That's it. It's you said surprise, Troup. It may have been a surprise for people that get paid a lot more than we do to talk about the draft, but I'm not surprised to see a below average quarterback go at a below average draft position. That did not surprise me in any way. Now, what was called? We said this before the season. We want Deion to do well. We want Colorado to do well. We want Shedeur to do well because that makes the college game fun to watch. Because the one thing Prime can do is make it fun. He did that the whole time he was in Atlanta, when he was in San Francisco, when he was in Dallas. Later in his career when he ended up in Baltimore. He's fun, or Washington and Baltimore. He's fun. That was all good. But am I surprised that NFL weren't willing to attach a franchise tag to a guy that went 13-12? No, I'm not surprised at all.
In a Cracker Jack league of all that, to me.
Well,
too.
yeah, I think what rubbed a lot of people the wrong way is it became the Shedeur Sanders show. The Colorado team was just a method to prop up him and to let him accumulate stats and do everything that Coach Sanders or Coach Prime wanted him to do. His kid, Daddy Ball, in essence. Not saying he's not a talented guy. He's obviously got some talents there. We're not saying that at all. But it just seems like everything was done to just prop him up, and it wasn't really about development or winning. It was just to accumulate stats.
Well, now we'll find out, now that he's gone, what's going to happen with this next crop of kids that have put all their trust in this program, that are coming in, that want to go play in the NFL. How are we going to develop them, and what are we going to do to promote them? So we'll get to find out.
It'll be different. I'll tell you, I coached baseball for 7-8 years, travel ball, and it was different. When my son graduated and was gone, I was like, what am I doing now? I love baseball. I love to coach it, but it's different. And I'm sure Coach Prime is going to feel really different when his kid's not there. It's just a whole different thing. We felt all along that was what he was doing everywhere he went, and he was bringing his quarterback. Yeah. It didn't matter who was there. If he had to get rid of players, and that was the weird thing. That was the really just the grand experiment. Let's just get rid of these players, bring my own players in here, everything to help my son, prop him up to be a number 1 draft pick, top 5 draft pick.
Yeah, Jerry Glanville said the NFL stood not for long when you're in this league, man. It's one of those things to me. I look at it from a longevity standpoint. Typically, what's the most big-time signees signed for? How many years, roughly? 3 to 4, right?
3 to 4, right.
3 to 4. So think about it. If he even lasts, they could get rid of him next week if they want to. Mm-hmm. But let's say he lasts. Somehow he makes the team and he lasts. You got to think about it. Think about his interview process. Think of all the people that he's touched and influenced through this process. That's going to come back around because there's going to be somebody else that wants to pick him up on free agency. Is that going to be something from the longevity standpoint? What he did he rub too many people the wrong way to the point where it's like, I don't want this drama on my team, and I certainly don't want some subpar, player that's going to come in and not help my team be better. They're in the winning business. They're paying millions of dollars to players to go out there and win ball games for them. They're not paying them to come in here and be, a rap star or drama queen, and that's what he is creating. Mm-hmm. And so I look at it from down the road too, man. He's set himself up for a lot of problems. He's going to have to shut up and humble himself and change his demeanor about that. Yeah.
Well, once a couple teams that needed quarterbacks passed on him, you're not drafting a prima donna to be a backup quarterback. That happens nowhere. Nowhere is the backup quarterback the focal point. That will even not work.
Yeah, we even saw that it's just a circus. When you bring a circus on, look, Tim Tebow wasn't a prima donna, but he did bring with him a circus. And when he became a second and third string quarterback at best, no team wants a circus in town. Like I love Tim Tebow. He could date my daughter. I'd be cool with that. But the problem is when he was your third string quarterback, he's the most interviewed person on the team. That's a horrible.
Yes.
That's a horrible look. And that is where we are right now in this saga. And I'll tell Coach mentioned it. I'll be very surprised if we finish that 3 to 4 years in the NFL. I'll be surprised, and my hat will be off to him if that happens. I think we're 2 years and out.
Listen, I'm not a huge NFL fan anyway, but I will be a Shedeur Sanders fan if he puts his head down, becomes a better football player, and just does things the right way in terms of an athletic standpoint.
Amen.
In terms of a competitive standpoint. Yeah, it's not a reality show, and you're not the lead actor, and so we don't buy that. You got to do things that you got to progress as a football player and put other people first and be that kind of a team player. If he does that and he succeeds, I'll be rooting for him.
Absolutely. Yeah. Come on.
Without a doubt. Good word to end on right there to kind of staple that.
Yeah.
Transfer portal's closed now, so we don't have to worry about that. The players who were on your team will be on the 2025 season. So you guys can
breathe
with that, take a breath. Let's take a look at what the final numbers are for Georgia.
This surprised both Coach and myself. I believe I said 13, Coach. I think you said something around there.
Yeah, I said 13 to 15.
Yeah. Overall, Georgia did lose 19 players. Let me run through them real quick. So there'll be some names that you say, oh, I forgot about him. I didn't know. Anyway, we got let's see, Sam Mpemba. He was an early one. Jamal Jarrett, he was an early one as well. Nitro Tuggle, Michael Jackson III, Damon Wilson, Chris Peel, Branson Robinson, who I did see.
Georgia State
with Coach Dale McGee. That's where
and Jalen Walker's brother plays on that same team.
No kidding.
There you
yes,
go.
sir.
So Branson Robinson,
good for him.
Good for him.
Marcus Easley, Luke Bennett, Julian Humphrey, let's see, Jaden Rashada, Ra Thomas. I don't know if Jaden Rashada even has a team yet. So
he does. He just signed. Yeah.
Ra Thomas, Carson Beck actually was a portal entry. I don't know if you guys.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Actually a portal entry. Justin Redd, Troy Bowles. He was a guy I had big hopes for.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Anthony Evans, David Daniel Sissevan, Jake Pope, and Colin Gill. I don't know Colin. Those were the 19.
I don't know much about Colin. The rest of those guys are you get it. I mean, I get it. I get it with them, but
yeah.
I see pretty much 85% of those guys you called out just want to play, and they're just not going to on a UGA roster. I'd say Damon Wilson is the one I really hate to see leave because of his playing ability and what he brought to the table with his tenure. But obviously the play scheme and what he wanted to do in their scheme was not what he was looking to do. And I don't know going to Missouri is going to be his best fit. He obviously felt so, but it's one of those things we'll see as the year plays out. But he was one of the ones that I think that hurt the most because it hurt our depth, especially at that position.
Shock, yes.
Well,
it was a shock because he had a wide open lane, and you don't see people turn that down at a place like Georgia.
No, unless your name's Bear Alexander, then you see that exact. So does he follow a path similar to Bear, or does I want him to go kill it at Missouri? I don't ever wish a player
I don't wish
badly
against Damon at all.
Yeah, but I mean, watching.
I think we fit it with Elo Mendoza. I think fits him very well.
Oh my goodness!
What he left, I'm really excited about that.
Anything you possibly lost in athleticism, you made up for in experience and character. I'll take that as an even switch. I mean, it's not sexy. It's not sexy, but that's not how Georgia wins. Georgia don't win sexy. So
yeah. So as we talk about those guys coming in, Georgia did bring in 9 transfer portal players. Elo Mendoza, edge player. Both the Branch brothers, but Zachariah, wide receiver, of course, and Zion, DB. Adrian Maddox, another defensive back. Josh Horton, defensive lineman. Joshua McCray, a running back. Noah Thomas, wide receiver. Walt Claire Flynn, interior offensive lineman, center type. He's coming in.
I'm high on him, believe it or not. I loved his film. He's a bully in the middle of the line.
He's excited to be a dog. I saw some of his stuff. Micah Bell, a wide receiver, and Jaden Harris, a safety. All 9 portal entries coming into Georgia. And I think me and Smooch talked about it last week. Even though the numbers are less, you had guys who weren't going to make an impact who now are going somewhere they actually can play. And Georgia has the numbers, I think, to replace those guys. But I think it's a net gain overall in terms of the impact players and the positions of need. Georgia did do well in that.
You see with Horton, this new era of the transfer portal, I think Horton is a project. He's like bringing in a recruit out of high school, but they're just doing it from the portal. Like I don't think Horton makes a huge contribution this year. I think he can, but it may be years down the road, and that's just the new world we're living in. I think you've got guys. You can't throw around the word starter at Georgia because it doesn't really mean anything. Contributor. I think in that list there are several key contributors that are coming in to immediately contribute, Coach.
Yeah. Mark, I've done a lot of work on these guys. Marcus Easley, Nitro Tuggle, to me, Damon Wilson, those guys going away. But it's amazing how Coach Smart every year brings guys in that fit it perfectly. Troup said it, hit around the head. The attrition of what we brought in was really solidified by what left. And not only did we bring people in to replace those guys, we brought them in that hopefully can help contribute, not necessarily this year, but definitely add depth that we need and grow them. And like you said, take them on to where, Josh Horton kid over 2 years, I think maybe played 12, 13 games. He's been really hurt.
Right.
But something that we develop him. I'm going to tell you this, Xavier McLeod came in last year the exact same way.
That's exactly my comp. That was exactly the comp I was going to make.
And Xavier was out of shape and developed over a year. And guess what he's doing this year? He's probably going to be a day one starter for us.
100%.
Over the tackle with Kristen Miller, opposite of Kristen Miller. So, that's what I like in seeing with someone like Josh Horton. But, bringing Elo Mendoza to take Damon Wilson's spot. And obviously we saw what Zachariah Branch did in the slot for what Nitro Tuggle would probably have done. And, of course, Noah Thomas fitting that out there as well. I think we replaced the Anthony Evans and the Nitro Tuggles that left. And everybody that we brought in fit solidified roles and really make us feel, I think, very good, if not better than where we were even, a couple of months ago. So kudos to Coach Smart and staff, just every year seems to bring in the right guys for his personnel. It's almost like he knows his kids pretty well.
Almost.
Well, and we've talked to, I remember Scott Fitzgerald told us a couple times in the past few years that a lot of these things are not surprises to the coaching staff. Coach Smart has conversations with these players, and a lot of times that's the advice they give them. Right? Well, this is where you fit, and this is what you're going to have to do, and who's ahead of you, what we're going to expect of you, and if you can't do it, or if you can find a better fit, we'll help you find a better fit.
Exactly.
So they have very honest conversations, and you can do that. You should do it, but it's easier to do it from a position of strength when you have quality players, you have a really good roster, a great coaching staff, you won a couple of national championships. So that's just winning football, winning as a coaches and
great roster management. It's just great roster management.
It doesn't get any easier. That is so hard. Roster management is so difficult, even made more difficult in recent years.
Yes.
But I really respect the way Coach Smart and his staff go about this, and to not be surprised and to educate these players on what the risks are if you do this, or what you may gain if you stay here. A lot of these players get out into another program and they see it's not greener. The grass is not greener. You looked at the top. I don't know if you had the numbers. I can throw them up here. The numbers from that first round in the NFL draft. How many of those players were transfer players? It wasn't the number. It was a lot lower number than you'd anticipate with all these players moving around.
No matter what your star rating is, if you are a transfer, you are exponentially less likely to be a first or second round NFL draft pick.
If you get into a program like Georgia, if you only play 1 year, it sucks not to play. You come to play football. Very few players are going to play as a freshman, and very few players are going to play the most of the snaps at their position as a sophomore. It happens, special players, but that's just not the common. That's not the norm. And so educating these players on what's going to happen when you go somewhere else, and just stay here and develop. Just stay here, or you're somewhere else. If you're in a good program, stay there and develop, and put your head down, get it done.
The long-term success comes from that too, staying with the program, developing. You look at just like the story of Dan Jackson. He's been there for 4 or 5 years. just came up through the ranks, served his time, paid his dues, went through special teams. I remember the whole blocking of the punt against Arkansas and having, just to see all those things that he did and grow getting blown up for the Keely Ringo interception. It's little things. You lay your body on the line for these guys. And I think that's something that a lot of these youngins aren't seeing. And I'll have to caveat off what Troup just said that, unfortunately, I think that the new sign of the times in college football is we are going to start seeing more of that, where you have people that are going to be playing at younger ages, and you're going to see, less depth. So you're not going to see these 3 and 4 year seniors that are, out there, or juniors that are playing, it seems, anymore. You're getting back basically 2 good years from them. And if their talent level is where it's at, they're going to the league in their junior year. So, that's just the sign of the times. But I do agree consistency matters, and staying with the program over those 2 or 3 years definitely supersedes jumping around and moving from place to place.
And Smooch, I'll say this too, based on that with roster management, I've been very impressed at how Coach Smart is held together. Some of these defenders, that defensive secondary, there is some talent that hasn't been on the field. I think everybody was holding their breath that Ellis Robinson and DeMello Jones hang on.
They came from everywhere for DeMello. DeMello could have written a check in a lot of places.
So many schools are tampering with that. There's no doubt whatsoever. And then some of those linebackers, Georgia has just some riches. The riches they have at linebacker. And the next transfer portal, they're going to be coming after those guys again, because they're not getting 40 and 50 snaps a game. They're going to mix these guys. There's too much talent for that. But I'm so impressed by the way Coach Smart has held that group together.
I would direct all of their attention to Quay Walker. Quay Walker.
Channing Tindall.
Channing Tindall wasn't even a starter. Quay Walker didn't start till his senior year. Both of them they're both for Green Bay, killing
Miami.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Green Bay and Miami, and getting it done. And the thing is when you play for Kirby, this is different than even Saban, Coach. When you play for Kirby, you leave the program with a lot of tread on your tires.
Yes.
When Mark Ingram left Alabama, he was beaten down. I mean, there was almost nothing of him left by the time he got to the NFL. Yeah. Kirby manages to showcase what you have, use it to win, and protect you because you have a career in front of you. And that's a sensibility that I don't think another coach in college football has, Coach.
And another reason why I love Coach Smart and what he does for the program, the pride that he gives me as our head football coach, goes beyond just his X's and O's. The CEO mentality that he goes with is very important to me. And, we're talking about general managers now in college football. Heck, he is the general manager too. And he does a great job with admin and staff and stakeholders. And I think he's shown it year in and year out, just as we've just talked in these last few minutes about what he's done in the roster management. Every key piece that we needed to fill, we did. And we filled it with something equal to or better, or something that we're not an unknown that we may not know until, like an Xavier McLeod, who's going to obviously contribute this year. So it's very exciting to see. It's very exciting to know we've got him as our head coach. And I'm certainly glad he understands that concept, even though I know it's probably a pain in the ass year in and year out with the NIL doing what it's doing to him. But he's got good people in good places. He's got good sources, good resources. And it's just good to have him with that HC beside his name.
The one thing we know is he's not getting caught by surprise.
Nope.
Ever.
Nope. Not at all.
Yes. You folks, you fans can exhale, and we have survived another transfer portal cycle, so we can look at these guys and look forward to them developing and being part of this next football season. Yeah. Coach Hayes, we appreciate you for jumping on.
My pleasure, guys.
Lending your expertise for the Dawgs Show. Tell us where we can find you on social media.
You can find me on all social media platforms, especially YouTube and Twitter, at Coach Hayes Huddle. Now I actually have an on live show that I'm doing on Wednesday nights. I'm actually on, thanks to my buddy there, Smooch, helping me out with the podcast side of things. I am now on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. And so you can reach me when you're headed to work in the morning or in the afternoon. I do breakdowns. I talk about individual profiles, team profiles, breakdowns similar to what you've heard tonight with Troup and Smooch. Can't thank you gentlemen enough for allowing me to be on with you tonight.
It's our pleasure, brother.
All right, another great show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in for Coach Hayes and Smooch Moncrief. This is Troup Brinson saying so long. We'll see you soon.
But if you want to win,
come to the University of Georgia.
This is the Dawgs Show with Troup and Smooch.
It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show. It's the Dawgs Show.
mentally wrong.